So I think the cognitive facility becomes much more difficult due to those problems.
Well, and maybe again, the housing first model, using a transition in place, maybe that helps. Because you're not in a facility, you're putting people in a home that's zoned for them to live in, for them to be housed in. And so maybe that, and do you have to get the city's permission to rent a house? I don't think so, so that may be a good option to use. I think we would be very creative in your situation, and if I had to move just outside the county or outside the city lines, but I would do something, because I know you guys have a significant problem in this area that you're passionate about addressing.
Yeah.
And as you know, in rural areas, transportation is a huge issue. Getting anywhere, for us, we have to go about 20 miles north to get a better job, a better paying job. And that's Olathe. I was in a meeting that our city was having with our mayor, who owns the only taxi in town, which is our only transportation. And I just wasn't thinking. It was a large group, and we were talking about barriers to employment. And I said, transportation is just a nightmare. And she went ballistic on me, but the truth is she's wrong. There's a bus that comes down from Olathe once a day and back once a day. It doesn't connect and go very many places. In order to get a job that they're going to tell you the hours you're going to work, you're not going to tell them, and try to make those connections, make that work, it was just almost impossible. It was just not even an option for us. Now, if you needed to go up there for a medical appointment, maybe. But people need really a car. We're in a nation where if you're going to go 20 miles to work, you need a car. If you're in the country, you need vehicles. So we've taken donated vehicles, got them fixed, given them away. We have in our as part of our grant, we have transportation in that. Initially, we wanted money to rehab cars to give to our clients.
Yeah.
But since not every client would need that,
No.
HUD said, no, that you can't do that. So we converted it into a kind of a motor pool. So if they're able to drive and if we can insure them, then they can sign up. Here's when I need the car. We hand them the keys. They go to whatever they need to do, appointments, whatever, and then come back, turn the keys back in. We have a driver who works very part-time, so if they need to be driven, we can handle that too. I want to someday have a conversation with the Department of Transportation about, you know where I'm going with it. We have 3 general transportation organizations in our city that, because they can make some of their own rules, make it really difficult for anyone else to use the service. I'll just be blunt about that. And so general transportation, public transportation, I would love to see us do something that's more really like public transportation and include some of the 3 small towns in our county and have it go up to Olathe on a regular basis and just circulate and call if you need it, or also have some stops. But we've got to do something, because as long as we can't, this is another great example. We had people who were getting DUIs and were required to do classes, had to go to Olathe. So they were quartered to do classes. They were in Paola, 23 miles away from the center they had to go to, the closest one. Do you think some of them drove without their license to get the stuff so they could get their license again and then get caught and yeah. So transportation is just huge for us. And I know you probably have some of those issues too.
Your Department of Aging doesn't have some kind of a transportation system?
Our Department of Aging, we don't have much of a Department of Aging. I don't think we have a senior center that does, but again, they have such restricted hours, and you have to know a day in advance, and you have to call.
And a recommended donation.
Yeah, and there's a donation for the ride, which if you don't donate, you don't ride, so it's not really like a donation. But yeah, so we've just not found any of the public transportation, and we have searched it out. We also had kind of a friend on the inside of an organization where they talked about their policies were made to keep basically their clients in their vehicles, even though there's general transportation. So the other thing, that brings to mind something. When you're working in a small town, well, if I were in a bigger town, I'd have just reported them to DOT, we'd have a battle or whatever. But when you're in a small town, everything is politics. Everything, everybody knows everybody. You got a funder who may be related to this person. So we tiptoe constantly, and I'm not a tiptoe kind of guy. I really want to get in there and go for it, but we've had to learn to tiptoe around a lot of issues and fight the battles that are really, really important.
And immediately putting them into this housing can get a little sticky when you're doing units that you're responsible for and you don't own. So I'd be a little careful with that, especially when you're getting your community is to the size where you may have clients come in where you don't know them, and no families or know any kind of history or
Well, I've been speaking with some of the local landlords to ask them, well, what they're interested in participating in a program, should we have the funding similar to what MidCap does, pay the first 4 months rent and utilities, and then it's on a sliding scale. And what I hear some of the landlords saying is, I've had some really bad experience with people who do not have the skill set to be a tenant and to be responsible. And so my response is, we can put a class together on helping people get that skill set. It can be a computerized class that's one-on-one on a computer, or a group class, and an ongoing mentoring. I mean, so that, I don't know if any of you do something like that with your programs.
For the way we've designed ours, it's better than that. And this is what I'll tell landlords, is that instead of coming into an office for case management, our case manager is going to drive to the home you're leasing to them, and it's like a living lab. You get to see how they're really going to be in a home, in a natural environment. And so if you drive up and the music's loud, you get the opportunity to say, you know, if you play music loud, you're going to lose this place. This is just not acceptable. And the deal is, for me anyway, you think everyone learned responsible behavior growing up in their home, because if you did, you think everybody did. Not everybody just learned that. It's not like they're trying to be rebels sometimes, they just don't know.
They don't know.
And so when you do case management on the spot like that, you get to see lots of things and hopefully correct lots of things. You know, by the end of that transition, then they're good to go.
Your case managers go out weekly?
I'm sorry?
Do your case managers go out weekly?
We're going to require them to do, we haven't started that program, and really this is so new to us, we're going to, Haggie's not in here, we're going to kind of wait it in the beginning because we're not quite sure what's going to be needed. Probably at least every couple of weeks. And it may very much depend on the tenant, you know, the client.
We kind of start going, we go weekly.
Over 6 counties, so it'll be a challenge.
2 case managers, 6 counties.
3.
Well, 2 case managers. The first year, 2, and then 3 in the second year.
So we go weekly, sometimes multiple times in a week, depending on the client. We do lots of surprise visits, because our name is on those master leases.
Right.
And we have pretty stringent checklists. They have weekly housing inspections. It's pretty strict, especially for our transitional housing program. We're a little bit more lax in our permanent housing program. But yeah, and in our emergency shelter, just with funding being so difficult, I wouldn't try to find a new building to start an emergency shelter, honestly, unless you have some private funding that's not going to go away. We are very lucky because the city of Manhattan, they support us. When we started the shelter, we didn't have any issues with code or our land use. Our commission has changed, and we probably are going to lose all city funding. We're pretty unique, and we get social services have set aside funding from the city of Manhattan, but the 3 of our commissioners are not in favor of that, and so there's been some talk of doing away with that. But they also don't want to see people sleeping outside, and so it's that tiptoeing around too, because a lot of our commissioners are landlords in the community also, which makes things kind of interesting sometimes when we start those talks of how we're going to make things work, and everyone is going to benefit from the program sort of situation.
And when you're trying to sell a program, if you will, to whoever it is, you have to very much consider the audience you're speaking to, because everyone really, they're like children. They want to know what's in it for me. You know, okay, that's a great program, but why should I invest in that? So for politicians, it's not only do you want them to not see folks land in the streets, it's a responsible thing to do in your community. You know, the communities who are responsible take care of their people. You know, they don't consider them, you know, like another whole breed of, you know, those homeless people and ship them off to another county. But responsibility means, it's a good thing for your community. It's a healthy community.
That message has not worked with where we are with our current mayor, for example, because he'll say, oh, we take care of our own. And he's got a very limited definition of our own, I'm sure. But I'm trying to appeal to the businessmen who are the commissioners, because almost all of them are landlords, and there are empty rentals. And so to the extent we can help them connect with people who will be good tenants long-term, it's in their financial interest too. And I want to use local business as much as possible for everything. Instead of having a washer and dryer in a resource center, we'll give them vouchers to the local laundromat. so that we can be pro-business in the model that we have.
James, you want to go ahead and go, and then we'll do our last presentation, and we'll do some more questions.
Good morning. I'm Jamie Crowder, and I manage a homeless shelter for a community action agency in southeast Kansas. And I'm in a mid-sized town. Pittsburgh's probably about 20,000 people, maybe 30,000 when the students are all there. We have a family shelter. We can only serve families with children. And our shelter was built back in 2005. We had taken over a small shelter that housed about 5 to 7 families or individuals that had been in operation in the city for 20-some years. And it was not appreciated by our community. And so part of what we had to do when we decided that we wanted to move into the shelter business, which, you know, in community action, taking on anything new is a major ordeal. But we decided that we wanted our community to be part of it. And so part of the reason why we only serve families with children is because that's the only way that we could get our community to stand behind us and say, okay, you can have a shelter. We worked with our city, and we got a community development grant to build a very nice facility, and it has a nice shelter. We have 2 child care facilities in the same block. We've got about a half a block. We have a Head Start and a community child care. We office the skill program in our community, which is Southeast Kansas Independent Living, that works with families with disabilities. We built 5 Chodo apartments up above it, so there's some fair market housing that's available. We built a nice little community room in the back that has a kitchen that can be used by many different people. So we kind of took a blighted area of our community and we made it pretty. We built a nice building that's across the street from the police station. And then we said, okay, we'll house the people that you'll let us house. And so that's kind of how we got around the whole, not in my yard, not in my backyard. Like I said, we've been in operation since 2005 in our new facility, and we can house up to 12 families at a time. We are strictly emergency shelter, but we do a lot of case management, and the longer we do this, the more we realize how important case management is. Not only for the people that you're working with, because when you come to a shelter, this is probably the most frightening thing you've ever done in your life. No one woke up this morning and said, hey, I think today I'll be homeless. So getting the people to come to us in the beginning wasn't always easy, because they assume that a shelter is a great big room with lots of cots and everybody stays together, and it's really scary. And so we had to break that perception, not only with the community, but with the families that we're serving, so that they understood that this is a safe place. You're going to have a little bit of privacy. Our shelter's set up where it has 12 family rooms, and then they share a kitchen, and so we teach a lot of community. We work with them on, you know, making sure that they're held responsible for helping to keep the place clean and to do these kind of things, and to keep the neighborhood clean, and to be involved with what we do as a shelter, so that they can feel like they're a part of this process. And we can serve families for up to 90 days. We work a lot with a lot of our community partners. We have a lot of community partners to make sure that families can get services that they need. We're an SRS access point, so that they can do applications right there, and we can assist them with that to get the basic services that they may need. We will accept anyone from anywhere. If you find yourself in Pittsburgh, Kansas with nowhere to go, I don't care where you came from, and you have children, you can come to our door. We are not always full, but we are full a lot. I like to be full, but I don't like to be full. Yeah. You know, because I don't like to have to tell people that I can't help them. You know, we do work with some of our other shelters in our other communities to help provide services for people when we are full, and we kind of formed a little network. We're working really hard in southeast Kansas to bring all of the players to the table through our continuum of care. And